That's it. They're hanger-ons. That's what they are.
And that's when now I'm speaking on a different subject. I'm not saying that all of these stars that came forward were exploiting Jackson. Not at all. I think their homage was sincere. It's just they weren't there. They wouldn't show up when he was in trouble. Once he died, everybody realized the value of this human being, not only as a humanitarian, but as an entertainer and somebody who brought so much joy to the hearts and souls of, people literally, I think, across the planet have been touched by that man's music and art.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they were very genuine in their feelings. They're just lousy friends.
Oh, yeah, possibly, or afraid for their own images. How many people could withstand the kind of targeting that Jackson had on his back? Remember, this man couldn't make a move without it being blown out of proportion and thrown everywhere for everyone to see. We literally had him as a freakazoid by the time before he was at least on his way to a comeback, and even then. It was just always trying to find pictures of him in weird outfits. And let's face it, could he walk the streets as himself? He'd be bombarded.
Yeah,
exactly.
He would be bombarded.
Yeah.
He talked about some of that, in the outtake footage of the Bashir documentary, how he went to a mall one time and surrounded by, his little voice, and so sweet, And this kid came up to me, this little boy, and he asked me, Michael Jackson, why is your voice a soprano? And he said, I told a tenor, and he said, I told him all great singers are tenors, and that is my natural voice. And, it was so sweet. But meanwhile, he was explaining how he got bombarded in a Bloomingdale's or wherever he was in the Beverly Center Mall. He felt like going to buy a shirt, and he couldn't do it. So here's someone he couldn't walk out on a regular street.
No, absolutely not. He could be anywhere in the world.
Have a drink.
Yeah, he could be anywhere in the world, and everybody would know who he was. There's not one street he could be.
Bombarded and or the media, and then after a while with the media, he made a remark about that, how, if he did go to a bar and have a drink, it would be in a paper that Michael Jackson's a drunk.
Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He finally got to a point in his life where that's what was going on. Like, it didn't matter what he did or didn't do. They were going to just twist it and put it on some kind of weirdness on it.
Right. Well, he went to Schwartz toy store there, and they closed the door. Remember, they had the little locked, they had him locked in, and they basically blew that out of proportion too. He figured, let me just go in there and after hours, and they'll lock me in, and I'll do my thing, and they blew that out of proportion too, right? So.
Well, the whole baby dangling thing.
Oh yeah.
Completely blown out of proportion. I have to say, and that's something that in the Bashir documentary, which ultimately created the criminal trial, because Bashir, brought that kid. Bashir's the one who had the idea, along with Michael. Let's bring one of the kids that I helped from an illness and show how I helped this child recuperate and recover. And they picked the cancer victim, and Bashir suggested they bring the cancer victim up to Neverland. It was 2 years later, and he was now cured, and his hair had grown back from the radiation and whatnot. And somebody posed, and I'm told it was Bashir, posed this kid's head on Michael's shoulder. And so Michael's doing the tape showing he wants people to think, he wants people to know, not think, but to know that he's helped children all his life.
Yeah, right.
It's a fact.
Absolutely.
And he's gone to hospitals everywhere he ever performed, children's hospitals everywhere he ever performed a concert. And, he's given so much back to children, and he thought this documentary was going to be about that and his children's holiday. He wanted to create an international children's holiday for all the children in the world who are in poverty and don't have really a holiday.
Right.
They do have holidays, but this was his idea. Michael Jackson always had these Peter Pan wacky ideas.
Yeah.
But he thought that Bashir was going to focus on his children's holiday, and he believed it and trusted, a media person who then twisted the tables. And suddenly we have a family of accusers that are saying Michael Jackson molested this cancer patient after the Bashir documentary aired, not before, not during, but after it aired in the UK and the United States. That's when this family claims that Michael, having the family around him so that he could ask them, please do a press conference so that people know nothing really happened, and I helped you with your cancer, and we all know that, and all I've done is help you people, and giving you this, and giving you a computer, and giving you cars to drive, and helped your family. And instead, during that time that he was around them with his people, they were using that, lording it over his head, like, well, we don't know if we want to do this press conference, and we shouldn't, we don't know, and because the media is offering them all kinds of money.
Right.
And what do? They go to Larry Feldman, the same lawyer that the Chandlers went to. They don't go to the police and say our son was molested.
Oh, no, of course not.
No.
They go to Larry Feldman because they're looking for that $20 million payout that the Chandlers got.
Right.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I mean, and it became so clear to me after I covered the case and I looked at the tape of the accuser with the Santa Barbara sheriffs, and the sheriffs, the Santa Barbara sheriffs, were coaching this kid. They were saying things like, you know what, you can tell us, it's okay. We know he does this to children. We know he does this to boys. But what struck me, and, you know, I think this is even in the show, is that, and the jury also said this to me, the members of the jury who I spoke with, they watched that police tape a number of times. I watched it 4 times, and when I couldn't understand, the kid was asked if he knew what masturbation was, and he was about 13 or 14 at the time, and he said he wasn't sure. And I turned to the court clerk because I'm watching it in the courthouse in the basement where, I'm being watched as I'm watching the evidence. And I would turn to the court clerk and I said, I don't have children, but do you have any little boys that age? And because I would think they'd know. And she said, oh, no, they would definitely know. And she would have a son. And I said, this kid is lying through his teeth and being coached. And the family were grifters. They were out for money from Chris Tucker, who is, the star of Rush Hour. They were out for money from George Lopez. All these people testified. From Jay Leno, he also testified. Larry King even testified, the Larry King, that he believed this family were grifters, okay? It was, to watch all these stars come in, Jay Leno and George Lopez and Chris Tucker, and say the same story, that these people, this grifter family, the accuser's family, were out for money, and we're using this kid's cancer to exploit for blood drives and this and that and hospital beds and fancy rooms and computers and cars and whatever. It went on, and then they found the greatest target in the world, Michael Jackson.
Yep. Yeah, right, exactly. And it's quite the shame. Chances are if they would have asked him for help, he probably would have given it to him.
Well, yeah.
But he did help them.
Even more. If they wanted money, they probably would have said, I'll help you out.
No. See, when he stopped helping them, was after the Bashir documentary aired, when they were hanging around now and looking for what else they can get, because they're being approached by tabloids to tell, something, because this kid appeared in the video, Bashir documentary, holding Michael Jackson's hand, which was set up by Bashir. He suggested that they hold hands.
Right.
And then the whole world starts calling and hounding these people, and they see dollar signs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they start to come up with allegations that this kid, this cancer patient, was molested by Jackson while they were hanging around Neverland using his chauffeurs and his eating all his food. He had like a restaurant set up in Neverland at his house. The kitchen was a nonstop 24-hour kitchen, and craziness.
He had bungalows for the kids and their parents to stay. Didn't he? He
had bungalows, he had guest houses, he had the movie theater, he had the amusement park area, he had the petting zoo, he had, this is a guy who had the choo-choo train going around the 2,700 acres. This is a guy who spent remember, if he couldn't walk around the planet, which he could not, you have to think of that. You got to remember, because that's where I come from, having watched Michael every day for 8 months during that trial and in the prelims. He would come out of the car, this convoy of cars, the black SUV, and there'd be thousands, hundreds, whatever it is, fans screaming, and then thousands of reporters, literally 2,400 reporters that are filming and snapping shots and all of it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And tents and the whole thing. And he'd have his whole entourage that would be in the other cars, and then some of his family in the other cars getting out and encircling him. And he'd go, but he'd wave to his fans, and they'd be screaming like crazy. But that's not a life.
Right. Exactly.
This guy couldn't go and walk down in Times Square in New York City, or he couldn't just take a stroll down the street as himself.
No.
Right, no, absolutely not.
No, he had to make his own planet.
He had to make his own, which was what was Neverland.
Hence the Neverland, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when that became turned into a sinister place by the DA, And when the DA was so adamant in trying to do whatever he could to convict Jackson with this family of grifters, Tom Mesereau, his attorney, said to Michael, and Tom says this to me often, he said, you have to leave Santa Barbara. You have to leave Neverland because these DAs will never leave you alone. And you've got to leave. You can't stay in Santa Barbara. This was the attorney's advice to Michael Jackson. I don't feel that you should stay here in this county anymore. You need to live somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he became a nomad.
Yeah.
And so imagine being a Michael Jackson where you can't walk around the planet. A Tiger Woods, okay? 10 times over.
Yeah.
All right? Yeah. And then you can't be in the home that you created because you got DAs that are trying to turn you into a criminal and put you behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then he's roaming around Bahrain and then Ireland and then back to the States and D.C. and Vegas and lands in L.A. But he still never had a home.
Right.
Again. He died, planning and trying and,
Yeah.
Well, I guess I don't know what his end game was, but we know what it turned out to be. And I guess that's a shame because he still had a lot more to give and prove, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Well, I think his end game would have been that he would have wanted to have his children, have that life.
Yep.
No, the Chandlers was the first one, right?
Sorry?
The Chandlers was the first one that went after him?
Yes, the Chandler was the first accuser.
And the father just recently shot himself, didn't he? Wasn't that him?
Yeah, he killed himself. He hung himself, I think.
Yeah, right.
I think I read in the paper he shot himself, but
that
either
was
way,
the first one
I don't recall now. I know that he did kill himself. He committed suicide.
And you got to wonder how much of that was guilt over ruining somebody else's life.
Yeah, exactly.
At least that's my
that's
opinion.
Of course, what all the fans think, and I've been asked that question before, and whatever happened there, they signed away for money.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened there, and I don't know. I don't know. I just think that there are people who feel that something really happened, and there are people who are not sure. I don't know. I can't say in the Chandler case because there was never a trial, but I know that in the Arvizo case, which was the only thing that ever went to court. People think there were 2 trials against Michael Jackson. There were never 2 trials. There was only 1 trial.
The first one he settled, right?
I wrote a book about. Huh?
The first one he settled, right? He paid them to go away.
Right. They threatened to take him to court, and he and the kid, they wanted the money.
Yeah.
The family.
Right.
So he paid them to go away, and then everybody else saw dollar signs.
And what's interesting about it is, if you think about it, is that had they gone to court, criminal court, like this other family tried, and won, then they would have automatically been given a civil verdict.
Mm-hmm.
If he was found guilty, then in a civil court, he would have to pay, just like O.J. Simpson was ordered by a jury to pay all those millions of dollars to the Goldman family.
Right.
Just like Robert Blake, even though he was found not guilty in the criminal, he was found guilty in the civil, and was ordered to pay, again, I think it was over $30 million to the Bonnie Lee Bakley family. So, they could have, the Chandlers, gone to court.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it comes down to one word against another, and who knows. But Michael Jackson was told by his advisors to make it go away, because at that time he was at the height of his career. He was making more money than any given entertainer, I think, at the time. And he had Thriller out and Bad out right when that was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was right at the height of it. It was just make it go away. We don't need this right now.
Right. You can make $100 million a year. You don't need,
Yeah.
You'll see. I talked to, if you see the show tomorrow night, I talked to Frank DeLeo as well, which is Michael's manager, who worked with AEG, who many of the fans feel like, well, they pushed Michael too far and that he's partially responsible for Michael's early demise in some strange way. But I know Frank DeLeo because he was at the trial, because he cares so much about Michael. He was the one who brought Michael through Bad and Thriller and all the great times, and encouraged Michael to buy Neverland, actually. And he was there at the trial because he cared. And there were a lot of people at that trial for Michael because they cared in his life. His family was all there, and, we're all there. But anyway, the manager, Frank DeLeo, was with Michael the day before he died, and, the very night before he died, at rehearsal. And then the next morning, he's the one who got the call and went to the hospital, and he's the one who had to tell Catherine that Michael was gone, and also tell the 3 children that their dad was gone.